Let's wait for 2 minutes and then we are going to start. In the meantime, I let me take some questions from the last discussion we had in our last class. Yeah, so any doubts up till now? No? Okay, Rahul. Sure, sure then. So let's start today's discussion. In our last class, we were dealing with some basic architectural details where we were talking about solution architecture. Okay, okay, sorry, I have not started the presentation. Sorry. So what I observed that some of the things were not saved in the slides. So for that you have to refer to the last video only. Yeah. Anyways, coming back to the discussion, we were about to start technology architecture, and in some of the places you can also find this as technical architecture. So don't get confused, right? Because we are dealing with the same thing here. So when we talk about technology architecture, basically we or the technical architecture, this is basically is a form of architecture that is used to design a computer system, right? And a computer system here, it means, right, that would have the development of the technical blueprint. That would be in regards to the like arrangements, interactions, interdependence, and all the relevant items which we can think of now. So in some sense, basically, we are trying to adopt some digital trends here that can be like cloud computing and yeah, a very popular one, which is your uh, SaaS, right? Many of you might be aware with this term. There's nothing but what is SaaS? A simple term?
So it's software as a service.
Right? Yeah, very correct, Rahul. Software as a service, right? And so basically, the digital transition that is required uh, for a skilled developing team needs to know all these things. And these days, IT architecture come in IT architecture basically encompasses a variety of different roles that would take care of all these things. And this technology architecture will basically associate the application component from your application architecture. Right, on one hand we have application component, on other side we have application architecture, and that too with your technology components representing your software and your hardware components. So here we are discussing about both the software components plus the hardware components. So it's basically the components which are generally required in the marketplace and can be assembled, can be configured. In case of softwares, it's not that easy. In case of hardware, it's comparatively easier and configured basically to constitute the enterprise technological infrastructure. Your technology architecture basically provides a more concrete view of the way in which your application components will be uh, realized and will be deployed. So this enables the migration problems that can arise between the different steps of your information system evolution path, and this path can be decided later as well. So it basically provides a more precise means of evaluating the responses to some constraints, which can be your uh, you know NFRs, your non-functional requirements. And by estimating the hardware and network sizing needs, or by setting up your server or the storage needs, your technological architecture basically can concentrate on the logistical and the location problems related to your hardware location or information service management capabilities. So what we have is like, in case of enterprise level data architecture, uh, what we try to do is we try to ensure that your enterprise is basically developing the right application, and this right application is there on the right platform or not. Right, so that kind of thing is there. And this also ensures that your not only with this, I have the right tools as well. Right, I have some right tools as well in order to develop and in order to utilize the all possible resources. So this basically prevents some time being spent in the application effort, which previously was not considered to be very important, but these days, yes, it's something which is very important. And in some sense, these architectures are not enough to ensure that the process and the templates are used properly, because we'll be providing the architecture, we'll be providing the template, we'll be providing the process as well, but whether it is used properly or not, that's something which is to be taken care of. And without the infrastructure mechanism in place, the architectures, the processes, the standards, your procedures, your best practices, these things all fall by the wayside, right? And in these data infrastructure mechanisms in place, your architecture has a chance of surviving and taking care of all the chaos which we come across while coming up with the in the process of development of this architecture or the entire product as a whole. Right. So what we have is, we get the infrastructure functional group here. So there, what we do is that we have a scope and plan, right? So then we have uh, analysis and definition. Then we have your architect and design. Then once we have done, then that means we have the design and other stuff. We'll be building and we'll be testing, and then we can implement, and then we can deploy, and we can roll out the product. Right. So here, in some sense, what we are trying to do is that in this thing we are talking about your scope, your priorities, right? What are some important components and constraints also we'll be talking about, and then budget, of course, right? Budget itself is a constraint in some sense. Then post which what we do is we go for technical architecture, right? And right, so here you can see this thing has been introduced. Then we come up with the product architecture, right? And with this, what we do is while building and testing, we set up the technology environment. Then what we do is we operate and we monitor. Sometimes we tune the infrastructure as well, right? This tuning of infrastructure can be for softwares and for hardwares as well. And then finally we go for your system testing, right? By the way, when this system testing is done, or any idea about system testing? Any idea about system testing?
Sir, is it like that complete hardware plus software is tested, whole system as a whole?
Yeah, up to some extent, yes. So, okay, by the way, here, let me write the title also. Yeah. I'll So what we have here is we have this infrastructure functional group, and then what we do is that initially what we do, we go for unit level testing, then we go for your integration testing, right? From unit testing we move to module testing. Sorry, unit or module can be same, right? And then from unit testing I go for integration testing, and then I go for system testing. So in case of unit testing, I have like small modules, right? And then I have integration testing, then I have system testing, right? Getting my point or not? So what we are doing is that small individual components are tested, and then I have, in case of unit testing, small individual modules are tested. We then check for the interfaces, right? That means it can be like JDBC or DBC bridge driver, right? And then we go for system testing. System testing, that means the entire system which is running on a platform, a software environment and a hardware environment. So I get system as a whole. Like this is like very close to the deployment part, right? Very close to the deployment part. So what we have is like basically we have like two primary deliverables, right? One is architecture, right, where we go for design and implementation of the technology, or then we have like operations where we go for operating, then monitoring and tuning, and then we also look for business environment SL. By the way, any doubt in this part? Unit test up to unit testing to the system testing. Any? I hope you are with me.
So, we are discussing this in a particular architecture or types of architectures we have finished.
No, this all of a sudden I've introduced just because we were talking about this system testing. So I gave you
Okay, sir.
some idea that how initially what happens is in case of software development, when small units are ready, we go for unit testing, right? And then we once these units are ready, then we go for your integration testing. And sometimes even these units are not all units are ready, then we take care of stubs and drivers, the kind of thing, right? I'm not going into details about what these stubs and drivers are, uh, right? Because then we'll land up to mutual exclusion, coupling, cohesion and other stuff. And once this is done, then we talk about your system testing, where we take care of your hardware and software environment both. Right. So any doubts in this? I introduced this just because we were talking about your system testing. Any doubts in this?
No, sir.
Okay. So basically, this technology architecture deals with your deployment of your application components on the technology components. Right. A standard set of predefined technology components is provided in order to represent some servers, network workstation, and so on and so forth. Right. So there, what we have is like I have like a technology architecture above which I'll have any possible external layer as well. I'll have technology architecture domain as well, which will be working below this technology ar- architecture, right? And then what we have is like we have hardware technology components, we have like the headwaters, we have like platform decomposition diagrams, and so on and so forth. Okay, any idea about UML diagrams? Any idea about UML
Sir,
diagrams?
use case diagrams, class diagram,
Yes,
these.
yes, 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 yes. You have gone through those things, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Now, so what we were talking about was that uh, what this technology architecture is dealing with, right? So, along with it, what we have is that just because like every organization has a unique or maybe what they prefer to follow, the kind of technology architecture, right? So the actual process basically is used by the systems, and this process might be slightly different, right? It can vary from team to team, or your uh, let's say companies to companies, right? And then what we have is that once let's say I have come across a vulnerable system and I'm able to identify, then obviously I'll exploit the opportunity to gain the access to the system or even data. In that case, also my technology architecture plays a very important role, because that what kind of uh, you know technology architecture we are using, that plays a very important uh, thing, something which where we need to focus a lot, right? Because we cannot compromise on these attacks and other stuff, right? Can you afford that, let's say stock market hours are there and all of a sudden your BSc and NSE website gets hacked, right? That's something which is uh, we cannot accept, we cannot afford, rather I would say. So every time I need to enhance the things, right? I need to take care of these attacks, and then definitely I need to focus. That's the basically importance of this technology architecture. Well, anyways, uh, let's now talk about your information architecture. Sorry. Yeah. Now let's talk about information architecture. So, any idea about information architecture? I think we had a small discussion on it. Any idea about information architecture?
Sir, maybe related to data and informations that our software is displaying or presenting.
Okay, so basically here we'll deal with user interfaces, and when we are talking about this, so definitely I'll talk about your web applications, mobile applications, right? Social media applications that can be the web or mobile both. So your World Wide Web basically, contains tremendous amount of information, and that becomes very hard to imagine, right? And just because a human brain won't be able to perceive any single thing, uh, it becomes tough, right? So people get used to seeing contents and the functionality of these digital products, as many of them are now like structured and easy to use, right? So any website which will have a better user interface, better navigation, you'll prefer to go ahead with that, right? Visiting that particular website. And it won't be a case where a particular website is not arousing any interest, readers interest. In that case, definitely people will avoid visiting that particular. If it is well structured, obviously yes. So your designers, your developers, they basically take a responsibility of constructing the content and coming up with a navigation system in a very appropriate way for user perception. And the science basically that assess the experts in the content structuring, that would be your information architecture, right? So what you have is your information architecture is basically a science that assess the experts in your content structuring, right? So all our discussion will revolve around this content structuring part. Right, so your information architecture deals with organizing, deals with structuring the contents. Right, content will be on websites, your web applications, your mobile applications, your some social media softwares, and basically, in some sense, we are today dealing with your user interface and user experience. So your information architecture basically aims at organizing the contents in order to the uh, making it very user friendly. That means user would easily adjust to the functionality of the product, and they could find everything they need without giving much effort, right? So if suppose I have to you know pay a lot amount of effort in searching a product on Amazon, so definitely I'll prefer visiting some other site, right? So the content structure basically depends on various factors, right? So your information architecture experts, they consider the target audience needs, because uh, satisfaction, or maybe you can say the user satisfaction, will be the top notch priority for your information architect, sorry. And this structure basically depends on the type of product and how well the company offers it. And we can take one example, right? Let's say I have a retail website and I have a blog site, right? So both the things are totally different. On one side we are listing a product, on one side we are listing some thoughts or maybe some contents. All right, so we'll see two different structures and with some different objectives as well. All right, because we cannot match any of the blog with what we have on Amazon or Flipkart, right? So your information structure architecture, it has become the fundamental study, right? When we talk about design and software development, and even in India also now there is a lot amount of focus on UI UX. So what we have is like we have certain rules for this information architecture as well in case of design, right? Obviously these things will uh, come under this design part, and you know we will be dealing with your visual elements, we will be dealing with functionality, we will be dealing with your interaction. Along with it, we will be dealing with your navigation as well. And these things are built according to the information architecture principles. So your powerful UI design will be a key to success for a particular product, right? And for a powerful UI design, I need to have the appropriate information architecture, right? Your unorganized contents make the navigation sometimes difficult and inexplicit as well. So the users can easily get lost, and then users will feel annoyed. And if the user faces, a first bad interaction, they may not even give the second chance to your products, and that means they'll simply avoid visiting this particular website. And still, many companies don't see the importance of information architecture because they think it's something which is subjective, it's something which is impractical. And it is like very hard to argue that your information architecture takes some time to create it, and this requires some specific skills to do it efficiently, right? And at the end, obviously, your information architecture is a guarantee of like high quality product, right? Because since it will reduce the possibility of the usability and navigation problems, so it would definitely yield a quality product. And a well thought information architecture will be in a position to save both time and money, right? Time and money of the company. And because or else what will happen is like most of the time, fixing the bugs, bringing some improvement takes a lot amount of time and money. Then we have like IA. Your IA means information architecture and user experience design. So right, so it's like user experience design is like content. It means like we are giving structure to a content. So in the first place, your user experience designers basically aim at making a pleasant interaction model so that your user feels comfortable using the product. Right now, I am talking about your UX design. Right, I'm dealing with user experience design. So basically, your design will encompass various aspects that can influence a user's behavior and the actions, uh, such as your emotion, your psychology, and your information architecture experts can focus on the user goals as well. So basically, your good information architecture is a foundation of your efficient user experience. So your information architecting skill is something which is very essential for the designers as well. And effective information architecture makes the product easy to use, but like will be uniting with design thinking and the product that has like some very powerful user experience as well. So what we have is like we can come up with any sort of strategies, right? I'll talk about the strategy in next few slides where you'll get an idea that okay, what all options we have here. So your information architecture system can have like any particular format which is popular currently, because any old technique, right? In the previous strategies of websites where we used to have lot many boring content with some boring links, these days it's like becomes it has become very attractive, right? All the websites you'll see, popular websites I'm talking about, they have a very good structure, they have a very good uh, you know overall uh, matrix given in a way that the navigation also becomes very simple. So what we can do is like we can divide the information because we'll be representing this information. So the we can divide this information in several ways. Like I can have hierarchical, I can have sequential, I can have matrix ones. So here hierarchical can be anything, right? uh, Based on the importance on the topic, and sequential can be like some random path for the users where you know I go by step process, right? It can be, let's say, adding a product to the cart, then making payment, checking out, and that kind of thing. Right, right. This is in case of your sequential. Right. In case of matrix, that becomes bit complicated for the users, because it's like several matrix you will find, and then each will be serving a different purpose, and it becomes very tough. Like I can have, let's say, alphabetical scheme. Uh, Based on the alphabetical order, I can come up with some scheme. I can have some chronological schemes. I can have some topics based on scheme. I can have some audience based schemes, right? So like I can have a website where I'll have a topic based scheme where, let's say, a particular you know a particular section is only for, let's say, financial news, a particular section is only for political news, a particular section is only for, let's say, international news, and another can be for sports news. Then it will have some subsection in sports, whether it is cricket, soccer, and so on and so forth. So it depends on what kind of scheme you are providing, and then this is, I'm talking about the schemes based on the topics. Then we can have some audience schemes as well. That can be, let's say, there can be a content for kids, there can be a content for the adults, and so on and so forth, right? And on top of it, we can have, let's say, some navigation scheme, or maybe some labeling system also. I can have some buttons, let's say a contact button, right? I can have drop down boxes, I can menus, I can have some text boxes, I can have some navigation systems, right? On, and then we can have your some search systems as well, where the system will be used in the information architecture in order to help some users search the data within the digital product, right? And like Amazon, right? If you go to Amazon .in, you'll find several products you can easily search, right? Similarly, on, let's say, Prime Video, you go and search a movie, you'll find whether it may not be that efficient as searching a movie on Netflix, right? So that's something which you'll observe, and then you can have a search system which is like effective only for the products with lots of information. So there, user may lose the interest, and in fact sometimes the user may lose, or maybe user might get lost in some of the portions, right? So in that case, uh, designer should consider a search engine, right? I'll give you another interesting example, which is not related to softwares, right? uh, how many of you have visited IKEA stores? Anyone who has visited IKEA store? Okay, Tanisha. Yeah. So, if you might have observed that the way the IKEA stores are designed is like, in India, I have covered this in Hyderabad. So you enter from one gate, and the you'll make an exit after covering all the possible sections, right? And at the end, you will find a cafeteria, and then you can make an exit. Correct me if, yeah, Tanisha, yeah. So you are with me in this. So first of all, they have designed their stores in a way that you have to go through every section, right? First of all, within the store you are entering, then you have to cover everything, and there also the subsections are made in a way that uh, you start with, let's say, larger products, then you'll enter into area where gardening related products are there, then kitchen related products are there. So this organization of the information, see, I took an example of a physical store, but in case of software products, obviously the organization will be in a way where uh, a person should not get lost somewhere, right? So this IKEA strategy is like very popular, right? And unique as well, because uh, once you made an entry, then obviously you have to cover the entire store, and this definitely leads to people looking at the product and then realizing that okay, there is a need, although there might not be, but still after looking at the product, you'll feel that okay, there is a possibility that I can explore this particular thing as well. So in case of information architecture, so right, when we talk about UI UX, right, we can take several days discussing about this, right? So it is said that a good design, when it is done well, becomes invisible, because people are busy using the product, and it's only when it is done poorly then we notice that okay, there is something which is the navigation, let's say, on our website is not good, right? So similarly the same thing is applied to the information architecture. When everything is in order, it becomes invisible, right? And this focus on this user interface came into picture from the year 1998, where people said that okay, enough of content, let's now focus on uh, the you know way to represent the information. Now let's talk about principles of information architecture. Eventually, in this year I have given much time to this particular part. Normally, I start focusing on your 4 plus win view and then design patterns, so you might be getting a feel that these topics are pretty boring, but these topics are actually very useful. And then further, there is also a case that you know once we'll start on 4 plus 1 and design patterns, the things will move in a different direction once again for some time. Well, anyways, so what we have is, in case of your principles, what we have is, we have objects, right? So basically, building the information architecture for a website should not be done in isolation, or should not be done in vacuum, because from the user's behavior to future proofing, there are a lot of things we need to take consider, right? We need to take into account as well, because beyond organizing the information, we have to organize in a logical way. See, IKEA was one of the examples which I took some time back. So what we have is, we have certain principles which are based on the understanding that the architects should focus purely on the structure. So in the principles of objects, what it says is that your content should be treated as a living and breathing thing. It has life cycle, it has behaviors, and it has attributes. So that's how we deal with the content. Next is principle of choices. So here it is like less is more, right? So keep the number of choices to the minimum. That means, if I have, let's say, if IKEA will, if I let's say IKEA places 10,000 products, then obviously more space and more efforts will be required. And it if that's restricts to, let's say, 4,000 projects, or obviously 4,000 important products, I would say, then obviously less efforts, high chances of sale, that would be there. Next is your principle of disclosure. So what we can do is we can show a preview of information that will help the user understand what kind of information is hidden if they'll start digging deeper, right? So it's like releasing a teaser in advance, right? So what you might have observed uh, on the Amazon website, if it is a Republic Day sale, so 30 days in advance, here you will find a banner which is like a floating banner, right, which keeps on changing. So it would be like Republic Day sale, this much percent off, and so on and so forth. So it's a kind of teaser where people get attracted and their attention gets diverted towards this point, right? In that case, your users will be on a higher side, right? Users will be on the higher side. Then we have the principle of exemplars. So what we can do is we can show some examples of the content when we are describing the contents of the categories. You visit visit Amazon. Let's take the same example. You visit the website, check the description of the product. You'll get an idea that okay, what details they've given the things. But initially, it was only a product. Initially it was only a product listed. Here it was pricing was written, and some offer was shown. When you click this particular product, then you get the details, right? Then you get the fine tuned details. Next is principle of front door. Just a second. Yeah. Next is your principle of front doors. So here what it says is that one should assume that at least 50% of the users will use a different entry point than the home page, right? So I assume that 50% of the traffic will come from other sources, not directly from the home page. So in that case, right, what we do is that we go to, let's say you go to moneycontrol.com, or let's say cricinfo, you'll find an ad giving you, showing something where you'll find that flight is cheaper by 40%, right? So you'll click on that, you'll plan a trip and you'll book the flights, right? So that's a principle of front door, that it's not always the home page from where you get the crowd or from where you get the audience. Now here your IKEA example fails because there it's like is it only the front door which is the only entry point. Now next is your principle of multiple classification. So it's like we should offer users several different classification schemes to browse the site contents, right? So it's like while I was visiting this product, all of a sudden I saw that this product was for 799. I have another sponsored banner on Amazon where similar product from a different company is available at 499. Right. So before taking a final call on this product, I'll definitely give a call to visit this product at least once. Right? Have is like we try to provide multiple options, right? So several users will have like different classification things, schemes in order to browse the site content. For taking care of that, I take various options, uh, and I keep various options available. That's how we have to fight in this competitive market. Next is principle of focused navigation, right? So the idea is to keep the navigation simple and don't mix up different things, right? We try to, let's say I was buying a product that was, you know, on, let's say, I, I, I was, let's say, planning to buy a basketball on Amazon, right? Mm. Let's say this is the design of, I'm making it somewhat similar to a cornea. Just assume that okay, this is a ball, right? A basketball. Right. Immediately you will see that an option of air pump gets displayed. That okay, if you are playing with basketball, then you need to fill air in this ball. For that, I am giving you an idea, right? So it's like people would prefer this kind of thing, right? And if suppose let's say I have planning to buy this and I've added to this basketball to the cart, I should not see a Volini spray ad below this, right? Because this seller is not should not give an impression that okay, you're going to play basketball. Afterwards, you'll need the Volini spray in this case, right? So I need to keep this navigation in a way they where people should also feel comfortable and should also feel happy, right? I should not see this Volini spray ad below this basketball. Right, so that kind of thing is there. And the last thing is the principle of growth, right? So let's assume that the content of the website will grow. So always make sure that your website is scalable, right? What is scalability?
So we can add something more, like we can grow it.
Always, yeah, always, very correct.
The ease with which we can add things.
Yeah, the comfort with which we keep on adding these things. So this was all about principles, right? And you know, no, this was the principle. Now let's talk about this value of information architecture, right? So this will have value for the user. It will have value for the business as well, right? So See, we live in a world where people want, some instant gratification, and that too when we combine this thing with the overload load of information, and the choice means that you really have to deliver the right content at the right time. Right. These days you'll see, Valentine's week is there. You'll see fun and petal advertisement everywhere. Right. And if suppose you are a registered user on this website, you will keep on getting SMS as well. Right. So if the process of finding your information is too complicated or too slow, the user will, simply abandon the process and move on to a different website. So I need to know the item seeking. Need to know the exploratory seeking. Need to have the idea about the exhaustive research as well, plus the refindings as well, right? See, if you'll have a bad experience from a website, then definitely you're not going to visit it once again. So this was for users, right? Let's now talk about business. So if suppose the users and customers cannot find the critical information or cannot perform the most important tasks, so your business can lose out in many ways, and your information architecture can play a very crucial role in your employees productivity, your sales, and obviously your reputation. And this will reduce your market cost, your yeah, one more important thing, SEO, because we are talking about, no, sorry, we are talking about user interface, taking care of the users and other stuff. uh, what is SEO?
Search engine optimization.
Yeah, search engine optimization. What it does, very correct.
It like something that's SEO friendly would appear first in the search results and relevance.
Right, so it is like optimizing the process of getting the traffic towards the website, and that would be like when my ranking is high. Right. So when we're doing all these stuffs, right, definitely I have to work on something where I need to improve my SEO ranking as well. Right. So information architecture has a very big impact on your search engine optimization. And organizing the website's data, its content will definitely affect the usability. And that would lead into your conversions, that would ultimately lead into the better ranking. And your ranking places the website higher in the result, right? Search results. So usability will make the website easy to use, and then obviously I'll have a higher conversion rate. And if suppose you have like repetitive content, right, so definitely your ranking will get affected. Right or wrong? You're with me in all these discussions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is all about. See, as I said, we can have days and days of discussions on UI UX, right? Because this is something which is very important these days. And in fact, some of your seniors got very good and very lucrative jobs in case of UI UX. And this is an area where people have started in India also. People previously were not taking it seriously, but now they take it very seriously, right? Now, this was all about your information architecture. Now we have to cover a very important topic: 4 plus 1 view architecture. So once again, we are left with very less time. So this will start in the next class. In today's class, now let's take some questions on the topics which we studied just now. Any doubts up till now? See, I'll be sharing
So,
all. Yeah,
so
Rahul.
can you discuss what was that multiple classification principle?
Okay, okay. Once again, yeah, sure. So, what I was saying uh, was that I'll be sharing these notes plus videos with you and other slide contents as well. So don't worry that I'm not sharing. The only thing which I observed was that in the last class we were, whatever things I wrote, those things are missing from this. So the last video, you have to, rely on the video only. If I'm able to recover that part, then definitely I'll share it with you. Right? Yeah. So what was the topic, Rahul? You
Sir, multiple classification principle.
yeah. Let me locate it. Yeah. Okay. Multiple classification. Now, when we are dealing with your user interface and your user experience, right? So, in that case, what we are expecting is that there will be several kind of ways to classify the users plus the information, right? The same product can be listed in a different way, and I gave one example also, that if suppose I have, let's say, one product listed, and this product is, let's say, uh, available on Amazon, and then there are ways to classify it, and in that case this details are there, another similar product at, let's say, a different price, I'll see a banner on it, right? In that case, the way to classify should be unique, right? Then only I'll be able to attract the user, right? Then only I'll be able to get my user to that particular product. So that kind of thing should be there. I hope I'm able to clarify it.
Yes, sir.
So any other doubts? No? Fine. Then in our next class, we'll start discussing about, and we'll finish probably that 4+1 architecture. That needs one entire discussion. So we'll see some case studies on it as well. And yeah, see you then. See you on Thursday.